All right, guys, back with another video for you today, and I'm going to be talking to you about probably one of the most anticipated collection of fragrance releases. I'm talking about Sultan Pasha Perfumes. Now, if you've been following my channel, you probably saw a video I did getting my nose on these fragrances for the first time back in March is when I shot the video, probably aired in April. If you haven't caught that video, I'm going to add it to this video as well, but just take note that it's shot vertical rather than horizontal like this. But today I'm going to talk to you about the 4 fragrances that just launched by Sultan Pasha Perfumes. They are selling right now at LuckyScent. I've got LuckyScent linked. You can go there to discover the fragrances further. But we're going to talk about Irisoir. It's Irisoir right there. We have Joyeux. We also have Quintessentially Amber. And then last but not least, we've got Thebes. I think that's how you say that. So 4 fragrances in Extrait de Parfum concentration, and they do have some vintage touches here. In fact, I really fell in love with these fragrances when I got my nose on them, and I really love 2 of them, really a lot, but all 4 are really, really great, and I'll give you my favorites as I'm talking about them because there's 2 that I really, really fell for, and maybe you can guess what they are now that I've mentioned to you the names of the fragrances, or maybe you caught the video that I put up several months ago, shot in Paris with Sultan. But let's talk about Irisoir first. This one, Irisoir, referring to iris. This is a co-creation between Sultan Pasha and Christian Carbonnel. These fragrances are highly concentrated and they are very long lasting. They are in Extrait de Parfum concentration and they're 50 ml, $360. As I said, I do have them linked in the info box to LuckyScent. There is a discount code there as well. You can take advantage of the discount code. But Irisoir has notes of Iris Absolute, Violet, Heliotrope, Lilac, Peach, Orris Butter, Carnation, Tuberose, Jasmine, Rose, Violet Leaf Absolute, Ambergris, Styrax, Tonka Absolute, Mysore Sandalwood, Cedar, Haitian Vetiver, and Musk. Up front, I'm going to let you know this is probably the most challenging of the bunch that I have worn from the 4. And you know me, I've mentioned so many times, I really, really love Iris. But this Iris is not Dior Intense Dior Parfum. It's raw. That's what I get from this Iris. It's completely raw, buttery, and vegetal. I wouldn't say it's animalic. I think the word raw is more appropriate for this. Unadulterated. It seems like, even though you've got this huge notes breakdown, for this fragrance, it seems that they've kept all the rough edges for it. But I'm not saying it's rough as in it's not wearable, because it's a beauty. It's just a bit tough to wear because it's so raw. Now, the iris and violet together creates a super powdery experience. There's some light fruity touches that come in here. This also has qualities of like light fruits in here, slight animalic touches. There's woods, very light florals. But for me, I think what's running the show are the powdery notes, the iris, the violet, and the heliotrope. They are really what's, dominating here with the fragrance. But for me, as I said, the raw word comes to mind. I feel like it's not, I mean, it's delivered in a beautiful and gorgeous way, but it's not super blended. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. But we've got some vintage notes in here as well. The one that really stands out is Carnation. I feel like Carnation takes fragrances into a slight vintage direction. It adds a light floral spice to the fragrances. And there's a lot of flowers here. Eventually, the rawness disappears. As I was wearing it, it became smoother. As it's transitioning on your skin, it does get more blended and blended. Everything kind of blends beautifully and melds together, mixes together to give you this kind of very gorgeous, powdery, still vegetal combo of, notes that I think they pay tribute to classics quite a bit here with this. The one fragrance that comes to mind for this fragrance is the classic Irisoir from Jacques Fat, I believe. These are the kind of fragrances that this fragrance pays tribute to. I think if you like vegetal, because to me, it's very vegetal. It's very carroty, very, very powdery. And the fact that it's kind of vegetal, for me, it makes it a little bit more challenging to wear. But I'm not saying it's a difficult fragrance to wear. It's not a beautiful fragrance is what I'm trying to say. But also there's a fragrance from Naomi Goodsir, the Julian Rascanet Iris fragrance. These are the kind of, there's greenness here. So these are kind of fragrances this fragrance Irisoir reminds me of. It's beautifully done, very long lasting, super thick and dense. It is Extrait de Parfum, very highly concentrated. And I think if you're hearing what I'm talking about here and you're interested in these kind of fragrances, you should definitely check this one out. Really, I think it's the initial blast where it performs very raw is when it becomes a bit challenging for me. But once it starts melding together, mixing together, blending together, is when the fragrance becomes beautiful. It warms up, but it starts off pretty gray. It starts off pretty foggy, if that makes sense. Iris, violet, heliotrope, quite powdery and dusty to me. Gives me this kind of a gray experience, but it's warming up because I'm getting a lot of carnation with this, so it gives it a kind of a vintage spice effect. So it mixes beautifully together to create this gorgeous fragrance. Now, I like it, but I prefer a few of the other fragrances more. But I think you should definitely check this one out because it pays tribute to the classic Iris fragrances of yesteryear. Done in a masterful way, I think. So this is Irisoir from Sultan Pasha Perfumes. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on that one yet. Okay, now we are on to one of my favorites in the collection. It's Joyeux. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance, by the way. So good. On my skin, this fragrance wears like I'm at a symphony. All these like fireworks, like instruments of music are going off with all the different notes that are on me. Now, this to me is also quite classic, paying tribute to the classic citrus fougères or maybe even chypre-like fragrances. This totally takes me back to those kind of fragrances. So once again, it's a Sultan Pasha Christian Carbonnel co-creation, 50 ml, $360. It's Extrait de Parfum, and Joyeux features notes of lavender enfleurage, lavender essential oil, bergamot, mint, lavender absolute, clary sage, jasmine, muguet, mousse de saxe, tonka, Mysore sandalwood, cedar, patchouli, vetiver, leather, siam benzoin, apopanax, ambergris, musk, seaweed absolute. There's a lot of notes here. These fragrances, I mean, if you follow fragrances and you look up notes breakdowns for fragrances these days, they'll list one top note, a heart note, and base note. I mean, this is the kind of notes breakdown, and I'm familiar with fragrances from yesteryear. And when I look at this, there's a lot of aromatic notes here, a lot of lavender varieties, even lavandin varieties, along with other aromatics and of course citruses. To me, the citruses are pretty prominent here, and it's the fusion of the citruses with the aromatic notes, eventually drying down to giving you that kind of a fougere barbershop-y vibe that we're familiar with barbershop fragrances. But to me, if I'm talking about fougere barbershop fragrances, the one that comes to mind always is Fougere Royale. It was originally launched in the 1800s. It's very modernized now, the 2010 edition. This doesn't remind me of that. This reminds me more of fragrances more like chypres, like citrus chypres rather than fougères, but it's classified as a fougere. One fragrance that comes to mind is YSL's Pour Homme. I think that's the one I was thinking of, but there's also Chanel's Pour Monsieur. It's more in that variety of fragrance, but with an overdose of lavender. And I think it's the lavender that's in this fragrance that is taking us more into the fougere direction rather than into the citrus chypre direction. But again, as I was saying, when I wore this, I just felt like all the notes were like crackling and popping on skin, and I experienced this very interesting symphony of notes. Very long lasting. Also wears on my skin on the dry side rather than the juicy citrusy side. There's citruses here, there's bergamot, but it's more about the aromatic notes. You really experience the realistic smell of the different varieties of herbs. And I was very, very grateful that I got to spend some time in the lavender fields in Provence in June last summer. And I got to experience the whole harvesting of the lavender. So it makes me appreciate fragrances like this a lot more, and you really get to kind of single out the different types of aromatics here. You know, we also experience clary sage, which this has, you know, featured in the notes breakdown. But eventually it does get slight leathery, but this is not a leather fragrance. There's a leathery effect happening. It's also a bit ambery in the dry down, resinous, musky, I suppose. The one thing I didn't experience, which is great that I didn't, is the seaweed absolute. But I think the way that the seaweed absolute is done is blended in so smoothly that it didn't stand out, because that would have bothered me. And this is definitely one of my favorites from the collection. And I love the name Joyeux. So that is the second fragrance. Really, really lovely. Those of you that love or enjoy men's fragrances from, you know, decades ago, definitely need to try this one, especially if you like, you know, like the citrusy, aromatic, fougere, citrus, chypre style fragrances. Definitely try Joyeux. All right. Now to my favorite in the collection. It's Quintessentially Amber. So if you caught the video with Sultan in Paris at a cafe, you know, experiencing these fragrances for the first time, this one really wowed me. I'm surprised how good it is. But once again, this gives me scent memories. And I love getting these scent memories. It's happening with a lot of fragrances lately. I don't know why, but it reminds me of something I smelled from a long time ago. For some reason, this one takes me back to the early 90s, and it's the day that I bought a bottle of Guerlain Samsara for my mom, because in the end, I was buying fragrances that I enjoyed the smell of and giving it to my mom, because I would test it first, because I've always been, you know, scent associated. So I would smell things and I said, this one smells good, Mom, you got to get this one. So this is what happens with this one. And it's interesting. They mentioned sandalwood here for this fragrance, not Mysore sandalwood, but the previous two fragrances, they mentioned Mysore sandalwood. I actually get a Mysore sandalwood experience here. And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of connected with Samsara from Guerlain, because I think Samsara from Guerlain had Mysore sandalwood. But let's talk about the fragrance once again. It's Sultan Pasha and Christian Carbonnel co-creation. It's 50 ml, $360, Extrait de Parfum. It's interesting. I just took off the cap. I can smell it. Like, I can literally smell the fragrance. It is a wow. To me, it's an amber, but it's an amber sandalwood combo. It's not just amber. I also read somewhere that somebody said, oh, that smells like Grand Soir from MFK. And I'm like, this does not smell like MFK's Grand Soir. I mean, sure, they have amber notes in them, or amber, you know, stylings to them, but this does not smell like Grand Soir whatsoever. So this has notes of citruses, aldehydes, spices, rose, amber, labdanum, benzoin, styrax, musk, patchouli, vetiver, sandalwood, vanilla, and ambergris. And as I was saying, they mentioned sandalwood here, not Mysore sandalwood, but they mentioned Mysore sandalwood with the other two fragrances that you mentioned. This smells like Mysore sandalwood to me, and I absolutely love the smell of Mysore sandalwood. And it also gives you this kind of a creamy effect. One thing I do need to warn you about Quintessentially Amber, it's so super potent. Don't speak a lot close to where you're spraying it, because it becomes this cloud and it kind of really like gets inside your mouth, lands on your clothes. These are pretty heavy, but I think the Quintessentially Amber is the most potent, the one that really kind of like spreads. So be warned, I'm warning you right now. But such an amazing smell this is. It's my favorite of the bunch. I absolutely love the way it smells. It's a nice fusion of very creamy sandalwoody notes. It's smooth. It's super smooth. And the resinous ambery notes that kind of, you know, got that sweet and spicy powdery combo of resins like the benzoin and the styrax. There's the labdanum here, which is what creates the amber accord. There's actually amber here. There's lots of spices. It's so masterfully done. It's to the point of orgasmic. I don't know, I'm saying that here because that's how good this is. Super, super awesome. So awesome. Again, it doesn't remind me of a lot of other amber fragrances that I'm used to now, currently. Ones I've spoken about on the channel. You can go catch my videos. And we do smell different things and fragrances in a different way. But I've worn plenty of Grand Soir. I've worn plenty of other amber fragrances. And even though both of these are amber, this to me is a nice fusion of amber and sandalwood. That's what I like about it. So good. So good. Anyway, that's Quintessentially Amber. Let me know if you've sampled these fragrances so far. Do add a comment below. All right, and last but not least, we've got Thebes. I think that's how you say it. This is another Sultan Pasha and Christian Carbonnel co-creation, 50 ml for $360. It's Extrait de Parfum concentration. And for the notes breakdown here, we've got bergamot, muguet, aldehydes, rosemary, orris butter, rose, jasmine, musk, vetiver, ambergris, oak moss, and animalic notes. In this case, Thebes is a vetiver focused fragrance. And remember, the very first fragrance, Irisoir, was the iris focused, and I said raw in the raw form. I feel like this one is focusing on the vetiver. It's not the vetiver in the rawest form, but it's almost to the point of kind of reminding me of the similar kind of experience that I got with Irisoir. I actually enjoy wearing this one a lot more than Irisoir, and even though I really love iris, obsessed with iris, I find the rawness of Irisoir a bit challenging for me to wear, but my nose will get used to it eventually. And that's why I felt like Irisoir is my least favorite of the bunch. And even though I said it's my least favorite, I don't think it's a bad fragrance. It's just I'm challenged by its rawness. Here we've got the vetiver in its raw form, but this one has some stuff going on with it that makes it easier to wear. It's a very dry and dusty vetiver, and it also somewhat reminds me of a little bit of Root de Vetiver by Maître Parfumeur Gantier, but a lot more powderier. It's the vetiver in its most dark, damp, earthy kind of styling, and covered up with a lot of powdery touches, because there's orris butter here. So the orris butter and the vetiver are playing together, and the orris butter in here hides the rawness of the vetiver a little bit along with the other notes. So it creates this really wonderful dry, dusty, powdery vetiver experience. And along the way you'll get flowers, you'll get some light citruses. It doesn't get so animalic on me. Like they mention animalics, but I don't think this is a very animalic fragrance. I think it depends on your, experience with them and how much you can tolerate it and all that good stuff. But for me, it was fine. You're really experiencing the rawness of the vetiver, and you're getting it. It's like it's just been plucked out of the earth, and you're getting the smell of how the vetiver smells, that damp, kind of almost moldy, earthy, grassy, woody, and leafy kind of a smell to it. But it's once again masterfully done, and it's a bit vintage-esque. I think the whole entire collection is, to me, classically inspired, which I'm a big fan of. And this one, I like the rawness, the rootiness of the vetiver. It's in your face, and you really experience it. And it does remind me of Root de Vetiver from the house of Maître Parfumeur Gantier, but I think it's the rawness and the rootiness of the vetiver that's in here that's reminding me of it. The vetiver itself, not the entire fragrance. And so that's the kind of experience I got with that fragrance, and I'm getting it here as well. And I'll be honest to you, I have gotten bored of vetiver throughout the years. I was a big fan of vetiver for a long, long time. I prefer the previous two fragrances a lot more than this, but I like this one a lot more than Irisoir. But that could change later, because when I'm challenged by a fragrance, I don't rank it high because it's not easy to wear. But later on, I get used to it and wear it. But for now, those are my thoughts on these four fragrances. And I'll tell you the ranking right now. The ranking you probably already know because I kind of spoke about it. But Quintessentially Amber ranked at number 1. It is so good. As I said, it was orgasmic. Number 2, Joyeux. Really, really great. A symphony of, aromatics and spices. On my skin, it was like, performance. I felt it. I don't know how, but I haven't had a feeling of a fragrance like that in a long time. And that doesn't mean if I have that experience, I can feel it, it's going to be better than Quintessentially Amber. As a smell, I like Quintessentially Amber a lot more than Joyeux, but Joyeux was also really, really great. And then number 3 is Thebes. And then finally, Irisoir at number 4. And yeah, Irisoir is nicely done. It's vintage-esque. I think there's going to be an audience for it. It reminds me of some iris fragrances from the past. So if I'm saying it's my least favorite, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So you might like it, and you might react to this list completely different. You might think Irisoir is your number 1, Quintessentially Amber is number 4. But we all have different tastes and preferences. So, and again, this list could change later. But for me right now, Quintessentially Amber and Joyeux are 1 and 2. But let me know your thoughts if you've sampled this collection after watching this video where you go and check these fragrances out. I do have LuckyScent linked in the info box. I'm going to cut to that video now with Sultan Pasha, and as we were talking about the fragrances, and then we'll cut to the outro. But thanks so much for watching today's video, guys. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Add a comment below. Please subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon, and please give a thumbs up for this video. I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.